Hello, my name is Dr. Lynne Reid, and I am welcoming you to a particularly interesting project, and this is about habits. So we're now in November and we're approaching the festive season, which is inevitably full of excess. But then there's a new awakening, a new beginning at the start of every new year. I'm particularly invested in this as my podcast and my projects and my app are called Aurora. And a sense of that is new beginnings. And there's no better new beginning than a new year. Now, we're only in November, but what I am wanting to do is interest you into looking at habit formation and putting in place some work now that will mean that new habits in the new year will be easier. So, if I had a penny for every time I heard patients say it or I said it, I'll start tomorrow. I'll do whole food, clean eating tomorrow. I'll quit sugar. I'll quit alcohol tomorrow. However, when tomorrow comes, that motivation is often dissipated and not easy to tap into. And I'm going to explore with you why that is. So in doing so, I'm going to want you to come with me in a bit of a journey about neurobiology and really appreciate the neurobiology behind habits. I want you to understand the behavioral psychology behind habits. I want you to know and understand the reward system. And I want you to be able to develop frameworks to cultivate good habits and perhaps kick some bad ones too. Look, I'm really passionate about both myself, my family, my patients, my clients, exploring ways to live healthier, to really lean into those 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, which to me are nutrition, plant-based. It doesn't have to be vegetarian or vegan, but it's about hugely increasing the amount of plants in your diet, clean food, whole food, eating food that is as close to how it is found in nature as possible. You can't binge whole food, in my mind. Number 2, exercise. So no matter what your starting point is, I want you to learn habits that bring more exercise into your life, and it might be in different forms. So if you currently don't do much, getting out, exploring nature, getting into the sunshine, doing a bit of walking, joining a running group, doing some yoga, or if you're already the sort of elite athlete, then looking at strength conditioning, looking at what you can benefit from core strength, flexibility. So exercise for everybody and at every level. The other one that I am really keen to look at is stress and limiting stress. I want us to find habits that enrich our lives and don't necessarily feed into that cortisol stress, fight or flight mode. So looking at improving our stress levels. Sleep is another one I'm really, really passionate about. I want you to learn good sleep habits. I want us all to be able to protect our sleep, look after our sleep, respect it, and get the most out of it in terms of having that proper, refreshing sleep where you wake in the morning and you're actually ready for the day. I'm also a great advocate for reducing toxic substances, be that drugs, alcohol, smoking, vaping, junk food, social media, scrolling, endless, mindless tasks that we perhaps get sucked into a little. And finally, one that I think is important, but we often don't maybe put as much energy into habit forming, and that's good, positive social interactions. That's the people that fill your cup. That's getting up and meeting your running group in the mornings because you'll feel fabulous afterwards. That's the getting along and catching up with a friend for coffee when you've been putting it off. It's the reaching out, picking up the phone and having a chat to a friend that you haven't spoken to for a while. People that fill your cup. So those positive social interactions, all part of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine that I really, really advocate for. So let's do a bit more of a deep dive. Of the Australians who do make resolutions in the new year, at least one resolution will be made by about 14 million of us in Australia. Women slightly more so, and more popular with the sort of younger generations. Gen Z and millennials, they're very keen for new resolutions. I think our baby boomers have seen it all done, all tried and failed too many times. The point of today is to look at habits to see how we could perhaps do them a little bit better. So just 8% of people achieve success with their resolutions. It's pretty tiny, isn't it? So a lot of that comes down to having unrealistic goals, but also not setting up your environment, not setting up your processes and how you're going to make that habit stick. According to most research, January the 12th, your fall down day. So that's round about day 12 in terms of what people can manage to. So how can we get us past day 12 in any habit forming cycle? Let's look into it. Habits form in the brain. And for this, you do need to know a little bit of scientific references, but just enough to get you past conversationally. I don't need you to be a neurobiologist by the end of this. So I want you to be aware that habit is a formation of a particular kind of memory, and it forms in the striatum. Now, the striatum drives that behavior like a reflex, making it hard to stop once a habit is formed. I want you to be aware of the frontal cortex, so that's the brain's decision-making, and we'll often hear some of us discussing our teenage children that don't quite have that frontal cortex fully formed, so they make bad habits. And I know probably from my own experience, didn't probably make good habits and didn't make good decisions until I was in my late 20s. So understanding that decision-making is part of our habit formation. So recognizing when we are making a decision to opt in and opt out. The striatum, this is a dopamine-rich region, and we'll get to dopamine a bit later. It's a dopamine-rich region of the brain, and it turns habits to reflex. So once you've done something several times, it reduces the need to think about it. Reflex, that's what we're aiming for. Easy habits, that's what we're aiming for. The substantia nigra. Now, this feeds the frontal cortex and the striatum along these dopamine pathways. And dopamine, that is your pleasure-sensing chemical. It drives the brain's reward system. People will have a variety of habits based on what dopamine responses they have leaned into, or dopamine that has triggered in response to something that they've done in a reward. This can sometimes, unfortunately, be our bad habits: overeating, alcohol consumption, drug taking. So, if the cortex thinks about doing something, the striatum can enable it, making it a reflex or deciding not to, stopping the reflex. So dopamine, as we mentioned, this is a chemical in the brain that's so important to our habit formation. It's the natural precursor of something called epinephrine. It increases our energy, increases our enjoyment, and it is an anticipatory neurotransmitter. Think about the thrill of the chase. This is your dopamine at work. This is your pleasure-seeking behavior. So it is dopamine mostly released in anticipation. You get excited. It increases the activity of the reward pathway. You can't wait. It increases your motivation towards that behavior, but also it produces wanting and craving that can sometimes be unhealthy. Dopamine is an important chemical messenger in your brain. It's got more than one function. It's involved in reward, as we've mentioned, motivation, but also memory, attention, and even regulation of body movements. And that's where we reference dopamine in the context of things like Parkinson's disease. So when dopamine is released in large amounts, it creates feelings of pleasure and reward, which motivates you to repeat a specific behavior. In contrast, low levels of dopamine are linked to reduced motivation, decreased enthusiasm for things, so decreased seeking pleasures. Dopamine levels are typically very well regulated within the nervous system, but there are some things that we can do naturally to increase their levels, and some things, unfortunately, that are unhealthy. So harnessing dopamine, food increases dopamine by 50%. Wow, that's a lot. And if you think of the times when you're stressed and tired and strung out and you reach for some junk food and you get that quick release of sugar and fat and salt and you taste and it's rewarded immediately, that feeling that you go, that's dopamine. That's your dopamine. Sex can also increase dopamine by 100%. And that's where people have recognized things like sex addiction. Nicotine increases your dopamine by 150%. And interestingly, video games, because of the scoring systems in video games, but also on things like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, where you are getting validation through likes and comments, these can increase your dopamine by more than 150%. So again, you can see why things like scrolling on your phone and interacting through Snapchat and, as I say, the social media platforms can give us that dopamine, that reward. It can validate that sense of needing. And it's just something to be mindful for in terms of how much that dopamine rewards and creates the habit, but also what actual benefit you're getting out from the habit. And really things like the video games, not very much. Cocaine, interestingly, can increase dopamine by 1,000%. Hence its incredibly addictive properties. Now, what we want to look at next is the aftermath. So you've had this big dopamine release from one of your bad habits, or maybe one of your good habits. So dopamine then will contribute to the establishment of neuroplastic changes. So these mediate behavioral adaptations to environmental stimuli. So it's a bit of the Pavlov's dog, isn't it? So you've heard of the idea that ring a bell, give a dog a treat, ring a bell, give a dog a treat. They have stimuli, they have a reward. And eventually you can ring the bell and the dog will salivate in anticipation of the treat. And it's a bit like that environmentally when we want to change our habits. So for example, I want to start running every morning for 30 minutes. Not a big ask, but actually getting out of my bed's really hard work. Getting changed, getting ready, putting my clothes on. That's a hard work for me. Things that you can do to establish a positive response is you know that you enjoy running. So after the run, you get that lovely endorphin feeling and you feel the reward of what you've done as well. Lean into that. Remember that reward. Put it to music. Imagine the music that you play on the way back from your run. So you're driving back home, you're feeling on top of the world, and you put on a song that is now going to be your trigger. So going forward, that song becomes your alarm in the morning. So the alarm goes off, the feel-good song hits, and you know that that is associated with what you're about to do. Additionally, we'll talk about environmental stimuli. So having your running kit by the side of your bed, having your car keys, having everything organized so there is no barrier to you getting out of bed, getting into your clothes, getting into the car, getting to where you need to be to meet your running group. So a release of dopamine decreases the repeated exposure to the same stimulus. So this does mean that more often than not, we seek greater reward, greater exposure. So it's got to get better and better. So these adaptive behaviors are habitual And certainly things like if you take opiates, yes, you get a dopamine response, but then that dopamine response isn't quite the same. So you need more to feel more. Alcohol, you need more to feel more. And that's those toxic negative habits. Not quite the same when it comes to good habits in terms of running and positive movements. These are all doings. So it takes us a little bit more cerebral work for them to become as addictive. So once a behavioral response to a stimulant has been established, the familiar stimulus elicits behavioral via interactions among what's called the limbic cortex, the thalamus, and the basal ganglia. And then you find that there's less involvement with the mesocortical limbic dopamine transmission. So this is starting to feel interesting, isn't it? So these are shortcuts. So this is when the habit becomes a shortcut. We're not chasing it for dopamine. We're chasing it because it's become a reflex. The dopamine response is there initially to help set habits, but the shortcut is what makes the difference. And look, there's lots of ideas as to how long it takes to make a habit. 60 days, 77 days. Everybody's different and every habit's different. So you've kind of got to work with it as long as you can and as long as it takes. So just taking you through the stages of habit, we've got the cue. So let's look at how that works in a bad habit, for example, your phone. So there's a cue, your phone buzzes, craving. You're bored at work, your dopamine's a bit low, you're looking for a little dopamine hit. You're seeking a distraction, you're seeking a secondary gain. So the response is you check your phone, you scroll on social media, you see a message from a friend, a funny meme, something that makes you giggle, or that you've had a like from an earlier post. Boom. Dopamine. There's your reward. So you can see how that can be very addictive. And we know that teenagers and our children are using the same dopamine response to get that awful addiction that they now have with their screens. So how do we create good habits and kick the bad ones? So this is the hard work part. But I say hard work, good rewards, and let's focus on the rewards. So creating good habits. First law, with your cue, make it obvious. So if it's eating fresh, good whole food, if you have easy access to fresh fruit, to fresh veggies that are to your liking. And for me, that would be mango. It would probably be a crisp apple. It would be avocado. Those are my things that I would snack on if I could. So if they're within easy reach, you're feeling hungry, and it's the first thing, that's going to be the obvious response to your hunger will be to have that fresh food. And that fresh food will always taste fabulous when you're hungry. So lean into that response, that habit, that reward. And again, making it attractive. If you've got to unpeel a tough orange in order to get to the food, it's putting barriers in your way. So easy access food, easy peeled banana, an easy scooped avocado. You're looking at making things easy. So access is easy. And then again, the response. So when you want to cement a habit, you want to have something that you can act on. So we've said about making things, you're looking at your environment, making things obvious. Plan ahead is this number 3 law. Make it easy. Make the response easy. So your stress, for example, if you have an easy go-to focus-led relaxation meditation app, if it's easy access, you can click it. And one of mine that I use for stress reduction and good habit formation for stress reduction is the Calm app. And I have a 4-minute SOS on there for high stress situations. And I literally click on it. It takes me a guided meditation for 4 minutes. It's easy accessible. The response I know I'm going to get from it, I know what I'm up for. I know what it is. I've planned for this. It's a 4-minute SOS. guided meditation on the Calm app, easy to get to. And then the reward. You want to be doing things that you know is going to reinforce your habits. So that reward's got to feel authentic and feel real. Do things that you love. And it's easy to love very obvious things, but we sometimes avoid them because the getting there is not perhaps the easiest bit. But things like running at dawn and there being a sunrise, that sunrise when you're out with your friends on the esplanade, on the beach, and you see the sun coming up and you're all sitting down to have a cup of tea, man, that is lovely. You've all exercised, you've got your endorphins for the day, you're doing your social interaction. Lovely. So satisfying. And again, things like whole food, creating and preparing fresh food. The outcome is wonderful, but leaning into it, to the mindful eating of your fresh apple, of your fresh mango. It's about leaning into it and being mindful about the reward. So you've got to recognize the reward, recognize when you're getting your dopamine hit, recognize when you're having a moment of enjoyment and lean into it. Kicking bad habits. Oof. You've got to look at your environment. So make it invisible. If it's junk food, just don't have it in the house. If it's alcohol, don't have it in the house. Don't be going to pubs. Don't be going out to restaurants where you would know that you would be enjoying that lovely red wine. During the initial stage of habit formation, try to avoid the triggers. Avoid the things that would normally lead you to be there. A lot of the junk food eating, it is things like going to petrol stations where junk food is laid out in front of you. So planning to have good food as an option, an obvious good alternative. Look at your environment. Make it invisible. Make the bad stuff invisible. Addicted to your phone, scrolling on your phone from 6 o'clock at night. From 6 o'clock at night, your phone goes into the kitchen, out of the way of the living room. It's literally out of sight, out of mind. Craving, making it unattractive. So this is actually putting barriers in your way. So again, if it's scrolling on your phone, it's about putting screen times in where you will get a notification that you've overgone your screen time. If it is, again, alcohol, if it is junk food, think about the times and really lean into those times where you had a rotten hangover, where you felt tired and lethargic, where after you had eaten, you felt yuck. Put those in the memory bank. Remember how they feel and lean into it. But make them unattractive insofar as, actually, in order to get junk food, I'm not allowed to use Uber Eats. No Uber Eats, it can't come to the house because that is just too easy. Remove your Uber Eats account from your phone. That's too easy. If you're craving food, you've got to get up and get out of the house in order to get it. Even better, plan ahead, have the fresh food ready to go. And then the response that you have to it. So for example, starving all day, haven't had a chance to stop and eat. You're thinking how easy it would be to go to the vending machine and take some food out of there. You know that vending machine's on your way to the car park. I can already see it when I walk from my office to my car park. There is a vending machine. What you've got to do is you've got to change your route. Go out of the way. You circumnavigate that vending machine. You're making access points that are not relying on your easy go-to break habits. So again, make it difficult for you. If it's easy to sleep in the morning, because who wants to get up? Have your alarm set across the bedroom from you at the window where you'll have to get up, you get out of bed, you get to your phone, you turn your alarm off and you open your window. You make it difficult to hit the snooze button. You're actually physically out of bed. And then making it unsatisfying. So a lot of bad habits have a small window of reward that is really rewarding. It's that feeling when the dopamine hits. It's that feels really good. However, if a bad habit such as alcohol is made to be unattractive. So let's not have them in the house. So when you don't have that immediate gratification from our toxic substances, it's less satisfying. Additionally, it is that accountability. You don't enjoy a drink on your own the same way that you would with a friend. So tell your friends, I'm not having junk food. I've stopped smoking. I'm cutting back on alcohol. A true friend who wants to support you will absolutely back you on this. Someone who wants to collude with you to break your habits, they're not backing you. So make sure you back yourself. Surround yourself with people who are going to back you and help you on a journey to new habits. Making good habits stick. A new system would make good habits easy and bad habits awkward. Think about your system. If you're constantly scrolling on your phone, put it away. If you buy treats on your way home, walk a different route. Have an apple in your bag. Know and plan ahead for when you might be a little bit weakened by your crave for dopamine, your crave for comfort, and make routines that circumnavigate that easy access to the junk food, to the glass of wine, and make the good habits just that bit easier. Implement a plan without waiting for motivation. So, before long, you will be bypassing your decision making and you'll be going straight to, this is normal practice for me. Okay? So, just putting a cue there in place. So, having little reminders, having mood boards, having journals where you're telling yourself how good this is worthwhile. If you're waiting for motivation, it's not going to come. Motivation is so short-lived and is only backed when you have a real desire and behavioural change plan in place. Just saying I'm going to eat healthy, just saying I'm going to write more isn't going to work. What works is making a plan of what you're going to have for dinner for the week by at least 2 days in advance. Set up a workstation to do your writing every day. Commit to it. Make the environment inviting. Have a nice candle. Have your computer ready. Have your notes to one side. Have your highlighters. Have your resources. Have your workstation ready to go and inviting. Have a nice environment. Stacking your habits. Inserting new habits into old. If you already habitually brush your teeth but forget to take your medication sits with your toothbrush. If you fall asleep before doing your meditation becomes your sleep routine. It's part of your going to bed to do your meditation. I'm going to have to wake my doggy up, who's snoring. So, serve vegetables on your plate before anything else. That's your eat healthy trigger. Build your food patterns in and around what you can do. It is so much easier to do new things than it is to get rid of old things. So when it comes to healthy eating, putting more healthy eating into your day leaves less room for the unhealthy eating. And remember, it's really hard to binge whole food. Motivation is overrated. Fix your environment. If you're not drinking enough water through the day, make sure that you have a nice big water bottle with you. If you can't see it, you can't access it. Now, we talk about people having good self-control. Actually, it's the people who don't need to use self-control who are winning. And these are people who have got processes in place. These are people who have their healthy snacks with them at work. These are people who have their water bottle on their desk. These are people who have their environment set up to make life easy for them. So, things like shopping online. A new addiction. I've got lots of patients who've done brilliantly losing weight, find themselves shopping online. Again, they're searching for that dopamine. It's the thrill of the chase. So what we want to do in those circumstances is actually block. You can be really ruthless and you can block your shopping sites online. Remove your credit cards from your Google account, from your Safari account. Take active approaches to make the bad habits difficult. So you have to get your card back out of your phone, out of your wallet. You've got to re-enter all your details. Make spending difficult if spending is your bad habit. And then strengthening habits. So as we talked about before, stack your habits. Put them one after another. If you go for a run and that's your good goal, you've managed it, you come home, you take your 10 minutes to do your meditation there and then. That's when you're feeling positive and the barriers will be removed. Add rewards. So, hate treadmill running. Hate it, but absolutely love Yellowstone. I can suffer the treadmill if I'm watching my favourite TV show. Sometimes what I'll do is put on another podcast, something that I can listen to, something that will inspire me as well. So use your cues, use notes and reminders to yourself for positivity. And remember, a habit has to be executed daily. So it has to be a new thing that you're doing and doing it every day. If you miss it one day, that's a one missed day. If you miss 2 days, that's a broken habit. So have a new rule where you don't miss your habit, your good habits, 2 days in a row. And before long, you won't need a cue. It won't be necessary. It will be automatic. Have your 2-minute rule. 2 minutes is literally I can do this. Oh, I just can't be bothered. I can do this. You need to have the decision-making process before the habit is there. And that's your frontal cortex. Make the decision. Make that decision be a gateway habit. So for me, I have my 6 pillars and I try to incorporate 1 or 2 of those pillars into each habit. So for my exercise, for example, I try to do it with my friends because it's a social interaction. It's the positivity I get from that. In terms of decreasing toxic substances, it's a family affair. It's, do you know what? We're doing dry for January. We are cutting down on our takeaways. And we do it as a family. We do it as a reward system that we work with, and we are grateful for each other, but also we are congratulating each other to doing it with somebody else. For every good or bad habit, there are decisive moments. And that's your 2-minute rule. In the morning, that getting out of bed, there's a fantastic, the 5-4-3-2-1 rule, and that's by an influencer called Robbins, and she's really, really good. And she has the 5-4-3-2 rule, and it really is that the alarm goes off and you have a split moment, a decisive moment to decide if you're a snoozer or you're up and go. And you've just got to say to yourself, 5-4-3-2-1, go. And it's almost like turning off the decision and giving yourself a launch pad. 5-4-3-2-1, go. All right. And then some quick suggestions. And I want you to now go back into what your bad habits are and what your good habits are and see if we can align them. So if you want to be reading more than you are at the moment, say you're trying to get through a new manual, you're trying to get through a novel for book club, you want to read each night. That book has to be sitting by your bed. That way you get into bed, pick up your book. That's your stack. You're going to go to bed every night. That's your habit already. You're stacking the habit on top of it. You want to do yoga every day. Even if you're not doing the yoga every day, have the mat out, environmental. In the morning, put the mat out, do some stretching. Doesn't need to be a full yoga routine, but it's the initial first stages of taking the mat out, the environment is there, and doing a bit of a stretch and quite enjoying it. There you are. You have made 3 steps towards a new habit. You want to run 3 miles. Okay, great. It doesn't need to be the first day that you run the 3 miles. If you can have their stacked habits of alarms across the room, 5-4-3-2-1, I'm up. I turn my alarm off. I'm already out of bed. My trainer's at the next to bed. Then I can go out. And if I run walk for 30 minutes, excellent. I've made that first step. Once you start doing the right thing and rewarding yourself, it is easier to continue it. But the start should not feel like a challenge. Remove all obstacles. In summary, motivation overrated. The most dedicated, the most disciplined of us actually don't need to use motivation because they have habit formation done. Remember, cue, craving, response, reward. For your cue, make it obvious, all about your environment. You want to eat healthy? Sort out your fridge. Have delicious, healthy food available. Craving, make it attractive. I really want to see Alice today, so I'm going to turn up for running. I really want something beautiful for lunch. Veggies look appetizing. Have it beautifully presented in the fridge. Convenience. This is why junk food is so addictive. It is now so convenient. You can order a tub of ice cream to your front door. It works the same way round. Good habits are made easy if they're made accessible. So you want to take up running, but you live in terrible weather. Treadmill. If you want to go hiking, but you live miles from the hills, you're going to have to start with a walk along the beach. It is not that you don't make your target so far away that you can never get to it. And don't forget to reward yourself. Congratulate yourself. That dopamine feedback from an unbroken chain of ticks on your calendar is phenomenal. Thank you very much.